Hello, and welcome to today's Lunchtime Research Talk. Every Wednesday in February, you can tune in to a different talk over lunch with CCA, Derry, Londonderry, and Ulster University. Over the month, different PhD researchers from UU will be presenting their research via Zoom in a bite-sized talk, followed by the opportunity for you to ask a question. The aim of these short lunchtime talks is to share with the wider world just some of the research that's taking place at Ulster University. This talk will last no more than 30 minutes in total, including time for your questions and a conversation before we wrap up at 1:45. So, our programme began at the start of February with Jane Harkness and last week Katie McFadden, and you can see the archives on our YouTube channel. Search CCA Derry Londonderry on YouTube to find it. And the last of our pilot season of talks is by Dara O'Shea, who will be next Wednesday, same time, 1:15. Thank you to Ulster University, especially to Dr. Catherine O'Hara, Dr. Brian Bridges and Professor Justin McGee, and to our funders, Arts Council of Northern Ireland, Derry City and Strabane District Council and Garfield Weston Foundation. Housekeeping, please mute. Pop your questions in the chat as we go along. We won't be recording the Q&A, so feel free to mics on and pop up again when we have the Q&A, and enjoy. So today I'm delighted to introduce Vasiliki Stasinaki. Vasiliki's topic is Imagined Islands, Envisioning Beyond the Anthropocene Through Moving Image Practice. In this presentation, Vasiliki will discuss how through her artistic research, she has been exploring the marginalized stories of the islands of the Aegean Sea and their use as places of exile during the Greek Civil War. Through material research, archiving methods and speculative strategies. Vasiliki is an interdisciplinary artist from Greece, currently undertaking a practice-based PhD research at Belfast School of Art. She has a background in dance and is currently exhibiting her work, Don't Write in the Margins, at Fixa Space in Porto. So, over to you, Vasiliki.
Okay, hi everyone. I'll start straight away. In this presentation, I will discuss how through my research, I seek to explore the way in which imagination, creative practices, and artistic methods can prompt historical truth. I will explain how by constructing alternative or counter-narratives to those framed within the official historical and national archive, and in opposition to hegemonic structures, I attempt to reconstitute historical memory and preserve it. The research focuses on the Aegean Sea and its islands, sites that served as places of exile for political dissidents during the Greek Civil War of 1946-1949, and on the lived experiences and stories of the people who inhabited them. This project attends to the marginalized and contested histories, geographies, and life experiences of the exiled, centering on the smaller, often overlooked stories that reveal alternative ethics, politics, and forms of resistance to those upheld by dominant national narratives. Grounded in artistic practice and material experimentation, the research employs geographical and embodied methods alongside an archival and speculative strategies to illuminate historical absences and erasures, either by filling the gaps or by creating spaces for complex narratives to emerge. My approach is anchored in the methodology of thinking through making, expanded here into an exploration of remembering through making. I situate this inquiry within the current political climate of polarization, binary thinking, and rising authoritarianism, emphasizing the need to engage critically with a complicated and nuanced historical past and to attend to what has been obscured, the small, the fragmented, and the unseen. An important aspect of this research is the element of subjectivity, as it follows my own journey of uncovering the stories of the exiled and the islands themselves, both literally and metaphorically. This subjective dimension allows for the work's speculative elements and is expressed through self-reflective writing that documents my embodied experiences during field trips to 3 of the islands of the exile, Leros, Macronissus, and Aistratis. Ultimately, the contribution of this research lies in the creation of a speculative space, a fictional archive through which the stories of the exiled citizens of the Aegean Sea can be revisited and reimagined. In doing so, it seeks to reconstitute historical memory in ways that can inspire radical political thought in the present and cultivate imaginative possibilities for the future. Although my attention focuses on the period of the Civil War, it is important to understand that there is a long tradition of displacement of unwanted people to the islands of the Aegean Sea that started in 1936 and ended in 1971. During that time, 29 islands were used to exile political dissidents, citizens identified as communists or socialists, and trade unionists accused of being enemies of the state. The stories of these islands have been methodically undermined and sidelined by the dominant right-wing and conservative narrative that fails to recognize and discuss moments of friction or conflict. To counteract this, the left-wing rhetoric has equally overshadowed these stories, thus creating a binary model of victors and vanquished, villains and heroes. Through this research, I aim to explore the stories beyond this binary condition and create space for more nuanced and radical readings of the past. It all started with an object, a handmade wooden tray that existed in the realm of my family home. And while I was commencing this research and was eager to find threads, insights, and connections to the past, it became the catalyst for the discovery of a rich prison materiality. It revealed scattered archives of handmade objects existing in the margin of the national or official organized archives. It proved a tradition of object making that was sustained throughout the history of the political displacements on the islands, marking even the most challenging times of abuse. It is evident that this creative engagement was vital for the survival of these people. It supported their communities, it bolstered their comradeship, it marked the passage of time of uncertainty, and it challenged censorship, subsequently becoming a gesture of resistance. It is this gesture that I'm thinking this research through. Informed by the work of anthropologist Tim Ingold, I'm thinking through moving and through making, and I'm remembering through making. I'm working with the techniques and the materials offered in the archives. I'm responding to them and I'm expanding upon them. Thinking through the gestures of my hands, I'm responding to the ideas of practical knowledge and handleability as discussed by Martin Heidegger and Barbara Bolt. I trace patterns and symbols. I engage with the textures of and the colors. I touch, I smell, and I imagine. I repeat and reproduce this information using carving, printing, and embroidery techniques found in the archives. I am thinking of the small and minor gesture of the hand as a radical and subversive act, following the writings of Mika Hanola and Erin Manning. It is during this repetition of the gestures that the fictional elements start to appear to fill the gaps in their narratives and reveal the silences. It is an unarchiving process. Myths of sea voyages overlap with the movements of the migratory birds that travel between the islands and appear in drawings and prints in the archives. The Greek Odyssey and the Irish Imran meet the songs written by the exiles on the islands. On the pages of the diary, I encountered the drawing of a kingfisher. A Greek myth refers to two young lovers that die and the gods transform them into seabirds to honor their love. Their mating season in January coincides with the midwinter good weather typically associated with the Mediterranean climate. These, in Greek language, are the kingfisher days. The myth passed down through generations and reshaped along the way parallels my own process. I translate the drawing into print, first copying digitally, then tracing it, carving it into a lino, and then printing it. And then my own body travels to the islands, exploring the geography, the landscape, and the field, thinking through the ideas of deep mapping as discussed by Ian Biggs and Doreen Macy. I'm working in repetition, resisting through the act of the repetitive walk in the areas of the camps and the prisons. I'm receiving information through my body, the soles of my feet that step on the same dusty paths, my skin that meets the elements, my ears that with every repetition become more familiar with the noises that made me feel uneasy at first. At the end of each walk, to punctuate its cycle, I sit and make a drawing, to slow down, to reflect, to connect with my surroundings, and to take time. I do it to mark the time and to remember the moment rather than to describe accurately what I see, thinking along the lines that geographer Harriet Hawkins shares in her experience of drawing with artists, collaborators in the field. On my mother's linen tablecloth, I traced the outline of the map of Macronissus, a map found in a collection of drawings on the island's archive. Macronissus is an uninhabited island that during the Civil War hosted a notorious Reformation camp. I traced the island's outline with a pencil. I then used a machine to stitch the red borderline following the initial tracing. Having visited the island, I have assembled through photographs and drawings a detailed documentation of its surface, its colors and textures. I used this documentation as a source for the embroidery work. Using the freehand embroidery, shades of brown, gold, green, gray start to decorate the fabric. This is the color palette for the dusty and dry ground and the numerous tumbleweed bushes, the only type of vegetation growing on the island. The uprooting of the tumbleweed, an absurd Sisyphean task, was a torture on the island. I am moving the stretched fabric with my hands with the needle while the needle keeps punching it. And these gentle movements of my hands, juxtaposed to the ferocity of the punchers, create a rhythm of storytelling. The story of the surface of the island, the story of the tumbleweeds, the story of the roots that were so strong, so deep, that on the place of every uprooted bush, another one would appear in a matter of days, and the labor would start again. I layer the stories as I layer the threads. The various levels of experiencing these stories are coexisting in the fleeting moments with every gesture of the stitching that captures the feeling and creates a moment of understanding, connection, and empathy. I'm creating a fictional archive. It is an installation of printmaking, embroidery, and choreography works that are arranged in the space to attempt and give a sense of the journey and process, but also allow the viewer to travel in different time in an alternative space. A series of lino-cut prints of birds that function as a speculative inventory get anchored in a geographical space by the embroidered maps of islands on the textiles. The maps, a combination of found archival maps, the result of the deep mapping on the field, and a response to the memory of my field visits, are machine embroidered on tablecloths and bed sheets passed down as a dowry from my mother to her daughters. In an attempt to continue destabilizing the official and national memory, I bring these pieces of textile in the research to signify the importance of the personal narratives and the private realm of the history, to question where the past belongs and how it is remembered. Ultimately, I'm attempting to revisit, re-narrate, and create a space of remembrance that isn't rigid, official, and monumental, but rather soft, fictional, and still existing in the margins. And that's the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your research, and to all of you for joining us. So I'm going to stop recording in a second, and we will open the Q&A.